weapons ban, calling the timing of the announcement crass.
As a Nova Scotian, I'm outraged that Justin Trudeau is using this tragedy to punish law-abiding firearms owners across Canada, instead of focusing on how he could make changes that would actually stop criminals and save lives. Things like tightening up U.S. border security and stopping the flow of illegal guns that are crossing the border from the United States. Justin Trudeau is using this tragedy in Nova Scotia to advance his ideological goals. This kind of behavior is unacceptable and beneath the dignity of the office of Prime Minister.
To weigh in on this, let's bring in Rod Giltaca. He's the CEO and Executive Director of the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights. And Ron, thank you for weighing in on this. So you're in favor of firearm rights, but what specifically don't you like about banning military assault rifles?
So, for one, they're just semi-automatic rifles, and they've been in Canada for 100 years, over 100 years, as a matter of fact. And the actions of the Trudeau government today were aimed squarely, directly at all those Canadians, and there's around 500,000 of them, that would go through the trouble of getting a firearms license and maintaining that license and abiding by all the laws. So he misses the mark on reducing violence, and he targets, of course, the wrong people.
But in terms of people that have those weapons, and there's been various different estimates of semi-automatics in the country, upwards, well, tens of thousands, I guess. But doesn't it at least get rid of the possibility of any of these being used illegally, stolen from legal owners, for example?
Well, it doesn't. And the myth of availability of firearms in a society leading to firearm-related crime, it's widely disproven. And unfortunately, it's something that the anti-gun folks continually bring up. So I'll give you a great example. They love to look at the United States and say, if you want to see how to do gun control wrong, look at the U.S. But the fact of the matter of the U.S. is, over a 22-year period, the number of guns doubled. So that's a number somewhere between 140 and 180 million more guns, yet violent crime was reduced by 50% over the same period. So if accessibility was really truly the problem, then how do you explain that? So there's a lot of evidence to the contrary. So we want to make sure that we're having an honest conversation, because there's a lot at stake when it comes to gun control.
Well, and do you think then that people just don't, people that are in favor of this ban maybe don't understand? And the reason I'm asking you this is because poll after poll indicates Canadians are in favor of banning, guns, including handguns, but certainly in favor of banning assault-style weapons.
So it's interesting because those polls get bandied about quite a bit. And while certain pollsters like to tell us that Canadians are overwhelmingly in favor of this, there was the largest, the most signed e-petition in Canadian history, 175,000 signatures, well beyond the next competitor, that was signed to ask the Trudeau government to not use regulation to ban guns arbitrarily, as they have. And the largest pro-gun control petition, e-petition in history, was at 20,000 signatures. So while we may think that Canadians are overwhelmingly in favor of these things, Canadians are largely apathetic because they don't actually know this topic very well, and that's what an organization like ours is mandated to change.
Okay, so Ron, let me get your response to some of the comments that the Prime Minister made this morning in talking about assault-style weapons that, designed to kill, the most number of people in the shortest amount of time. And what he said was, you don't need an assault rifle to kill a deer.
So the reason why people in Canada have these types of firearms is not specifically to hunt with, although the majority of the guns that they banned today were previously non-restricted. So people absolutely use them for hunting. They may not use them for deer, or they can, but they use them for, I'll give you a great example. In the United States, the AR-15 is used for hunting. It's ubiquitous in the hunting community, and it's for animals like wolves or wild hogs. But in Canada, we can't hunt with AR-15s because they are restricted firearms by name. Canadians have AR-15s for sporting purposes and for recreational shooting, and you can also be a collector and inherit them. But what I think a lot of people don't understand, they don't understand what it is to own firearms. Firearms are very important to the people that own them. Their relationships are with other gun people. They have gun clubs, their volunteer activities, the things they do on the weekend, all revolves around these things. And they treat those guns with respect and follow the law to the letter. And that's why it's so offensive for gun owners to have the finger pointed at them and have them compared to, mass murderers and people that would misuse firearms. It's really a difficult thing for us to swallow.
And what would the how effective do you think it is for people that do go out and buy, in the past, obviously the ban's in place today, but in the past, in terms of going about it legally, acquiring weapons?
How effective?
In terms of licensing, the process you have to go through to become an owner.
So and again, another thing that mainstream Canadians that don't own firearms need to realize is the gun control regime that we have right now is among the strictest in the world. You have to prove competency by passing tests for 80% or more. It takes 3 to 5 months of effort and expense just to actually get a firearms license. Your spouse has to sign off. You're monitored every 24 hours through CPIC, the Canadian Police Information Center. We can't shoot an AR-15 out in the forest. It's the range only. To store your firearm inappropriately against the law is a criminal offense, not a regulatory offense like speeding. There are so many regulations. It is so tight to hold on to firearms as it is. But apparently, people that would go through all that can't be trusted. So it's really offensive to a lot of people.
Rod Giltaca, thank you very much for coming on the program to talk about this. Appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.